It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He's Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. It's tax day. Get it in.
Oh, it is.
Or Elon Musk is going to be at your door.
Wow.
Yeah.
Completely forgot it was tax day today.
Yeah.
I mean, I finished mine 10 days ago, so.
Yeah, mine was done early March, mid-March.
And they cashed the check. I got that notification.
Yeah, no.
They cashed my check.
Mine is set to go out on the 15th. They're going to take it electronically. They get it on the 15th. Not a day sooner.
Well, I was going to
Trump.
I was going to
Or I'll say this, Besant, you're not getting my money sooner, Besant.
Well, actually, no. You could say I would leave them out of it. It was the Republicans who actually created the tax policy back in 2017 that made it so Eric and Gary pay more taxes. Mm-hmm. That's why we're afraid of Democrats ever being in power. Mm-hmm. Because if Republicans cut taxes as they did in 2017, and Eric and I got a tax increase, God help us if Democrats get in power and put through a tax increase. I mean, their decrease was an increase.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Republicans' decrease was an increase for us.
Right. If they do another decrease, that means ours goes up even further. You know that, right? You know that if they come up with the whole Social Security not being taxed, they're going to double your tax on Social Security just for you. And then when I reach it, it'll be triple. It's like, no, sorry, that was written in the bill. Eric and Gary will be treated different. Yeah, it's my accountant, filed everything, and she told me to tell Ted Cruz, world's largest postcard ever. It's the biggest postcard you will ever see.
We never got to that, did we?
No. Filing on a postcard never happened. I guess you could, if you could. I was watching this video on spycraft and how they shrink down. They used to basically, on the back of a stamp, they could print an entire memo in a dot. And it was down to 1/400th of its size, original size. You would have to blow it up, increase it 400 times the size of that dot to read it. Now I thought, well, let's do that with our tax forms then, and then we could get it. I could get it on 2 postcards maybe if we did it then. So. Got mine in. I hired someone this year. It's actually somebody we've known and worked with for, a long time actually, and she's very good. And so we went that route. I handed her all the stuff. It's still kind of work getting it together for the accountant. You know what I mean? It's like you still have to do the organizing part of it. I'm like, no, why can't she come to the house and go into the home office and go into the file cabinet and then sort all of my receipts? I guess that's a little too much to ask. No, she was really good. And I thought about it, yesterday because I saw something. Oh, it was at the post office, actually. I had to go send something for a family member. And they had some kind of thing on tax day, on the tax deadline, and so it hit me yesterday afternoon. That's the only reason I even thought about it. But I was thinking to myself, we look at the situation that we're at now with 36 plus trillion, getting closer and closer every day to $37 trillion in debt. And how many people actually care about it? Because, if you're doing your taxes, let's say this past weekend, trying to get it done and then getting it in, and you're paying in, you're not getting a tax refund like a lot of us. And you're thinking to yourself, I'm paying my fair share. You just get to this point. I could see where a lot of people get to the point of going, you know what? The national debt is the furthest thing from my mind. I got more things to think about. And I wonder if that's the disconnect. I don't think that way. I know our audience, most of our audience doesn't think that way. Because imagine if we had zero debt and we were in the situation trade-wise where we are. You know, I mean, if we're going to jump on a unicorn for a minute, let's jump on that one. If we had zero debt. So the whole bond market thing wouldn't have come into play. If we really wanted to, and the economy being like very, very, very strong. Think about how strong the economy would be if we had no debt, if we had our fiscal house in order. Mm-hmm. Everybody would be clawing their way into the U.S. to set up manufacturing. You wouldn't need any trade negotiations. You'd be at the door working deals with all of them because they're begging you because you would have the ultimate upper hand. But it's not the case because we don't care about our national debt.
Well, when we care a little bit more now than we did, and we care.
We're talking about it at least. Yeah.
Well, we care because of the concept of economics,
mm-hmm.
and we care because economics. Again, when we've talked about, because people ask what is economics, it's simply how people respond to incentive and or disincentive. When inflation affected people, then they started worrying about the debt.
Mm-hmm.
They said, okay, the debt's a little bit of a concern. We've got inflation here. Now, as you just mentioned, now with any trade negotiation that we have now, you have countries, and a lot of big countries, saying they now know, well, wait a minute, we're not going to buy your debt. And then you saw what happened to the 10 and 30 year. You know, you've got China now saying these rare earth minerals that only they make, you're not going to get anymore.
Right.
There's always going to be some kind of pushback. But if we did not have the debt, if we were responsible and did what the moral thing is, and the moral thing is not, and this is the one thing with Republicans that they still don't hit this hard enough. You need to go after the Democrats. If you're going to cut, you need, and Chip Roy has to do it every single day. You sit there and say it is the most immoral thing that we have done as a nation domestically, which is put what we want today on future generations. Mm-hmm. This is taxation without representation. You know, I've seen a whole thing about, you know, the tariffs are taxation without representation. You might be able to make the moral case of that based on Trump calling, you know, an emergency. But what's an emergency? How do you get that through the courts? How do you sue that? I know there's been some suits on the tariffs there, but you can make the case that Trump was elected. Mm-hmm. And therefore, there is some representation there. And Congress, of course, there's representation there. And they're the ones that wrote the law giving him the ability to do that. If they don't change it, well, then if they don't, if they have the ability to change it, if they wish to change it, and they could, because if you put the vote to Congress right now, the Democrats would vote and you'd get a few Republicans voting with them, and they could nix that. Now, you might not get it through the Senate you might be able to get it through the Senate if you needed 60. But the Republicans aren't going to do that. My point isn't whether it's right or wrong. My point is that there is at least representation. There's representation there. There is no representation for putting the debt that we have on today. That's my point. You can make the argument for representation with tariffs. Right. You cannot make any argument that the debt that we put on future generations, that those people that have to pay that and have to suffer from the result of that had any representation. And remember, our damn country was founded. Maybe damn shouldn't be the right word, but I just get passionate here because I get so angry, the immorality of that. And I have since 1989. This is when I first became a talk show host. It's the first thing that I was exposed to was a national debt. And I thought about it at that point. I said, why are we doing it? This is immoral. You can't do that. This is against taxation without representation. That's a basis of what the country was formed on. And we're just like, we don't give a damn. Just, put it on future generations, put it on future generations. And the Republicans still don't talk about that enough. Maybe because they're afraid they can't really cut.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because now I saw more stories on it yesterday saying, well, the Republicans, are they going to cut it all? They're talking about, they've already gone way down. Remember, we were told $2 trillion in waste and inefficiencies and fraud. Well, they're at $150 billion for next year.
Mm-hmm.
And by next year, remember, DOGE will be done.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to reach $2 trillion. You're not going to reach $1 trillion. You're going to reach $150 billion that you can cut in waste and foreign aid. As we always stated, there is not $2 trillion. The majority is taken up by, and even more now, by Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, and national defense. And you look at what's left over after that, and there's not a lot. And so that's the problem. That's the problem that we face. But saw a few articles yesterday. Are the Republicans going to be able to cut? They're talking about the $150 billion, but then they've got so much new spending. Where are we going to get a bill that does zero cutting after all the hype and hoopla of DOGE?
I have zero confidence that they'll get any real cuts done. I have no reason to believe that they will. I don't feel any momentum in that direction. None.
Yeah, if I'm in debt and I say, doggone it, I've saved $10,000 a year. Yeah, but Gary, you're spending $15,000 over here.
Well,
just increase the spending. It doesn't make any sense.
We've benched the fiscal conservatives twice now in recent weeks. Hold on. You can fight later for the cuts. Well, why can't we fight now? The makeup of the House isn't going to change between now and whatever time they're supposed to start fighting. Why can't you fight now? And so, no, I don't have any confidence at all that the GOP will get any cuts done. We'll hear the same garbage we've heard for decades.
Yeah, we mean overall.
Right. Off the top.
Right.
Cuts. Actual cuts.
If it was $7 billion, we want it to be $7 trillion, we want it to be $6.9 trillion.
Not we're cutting and we're using that savings to pay for this.
Right.
Cuts. Full haircut. No, not going to happen.
Because
I just don't have the confidence.
If it doesn't happen now, after all the hype of DOGE, it will never happen in our lifetime.
It will never happen. It will never happen. And at that point, we're doomed. We'll know. We're setting the table in 2025 for the future of our nation's debt.
And that's why I said DOGE is the gutsiest thing that I've ever seen a president do, because there's not really an upside to it. And it will be the worst thing we ever do if there are no cuts that come from Congress, and we mean overall cuts to the entire budget. It'll be the worst thing we've ever done, because there was so much hype and hoopla that we could do it like I've never seen before, ever, since I've been covering politics a half a century, that it will not happen.
It's making all the right draft choices, but having a Super Bowl parade on draft day.
You mean the Bills?
Yeah, like the Bills.
Okay.
Exactly like the Bills.
I can say that I'm a Bills fan.
And I can say that, and I'm not.
Well, that's just because your bitterness of being a Cowboys fan.
Why do you want to bring the Cowboys into this? Don't make this about Jerry. Jerry always makes it about Jerry. There's enough of making it about Jerry to go around.
Because I probably can make an argument that the Bills organization is better than the Cowboys organization.
Well, at the moment. But in the ring count, it's not.
Shut up.
Now, you have to go back 30 years, but still.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Cold weather takes a toll on trucks, As warmer weather rolls in, it's time to assess the impact winter has had on your vehicle before you find yourself stranded roadside this spring. Begin your spring maintenance routine by inspecting your brake system and listen closely for any air leaks. During winter, water and moisture that builds up in your air brake system almost always freezes and turns to ice, which can damage your air valves, air dryers, and other essential components. Check and drain your air tanks to help keep water, contaminants, and corrosion at bay. Also, check your slack adjusters for proper stroke and lubrication. And check your brake lining or pads to ensure proper thickness.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Wow, just I think two of the big issues yesterday: illegal immigration. You know, the El Salvador president in Washington D.C. And also the whole thing with Harvard. And when you look at it overall. I'll see if I can find the audio cut. It was Britt Hume saying yesterday, and it's something that we agree on. You think about it, illegal immigration has been absolutely one of the best successes that you could possibly say a president was given credit for, because he deserved getting credit for it on illegal immigration. All the crap that Democrats told you, everything that they told you was a lie, everything on illegal immigration. Every single thing that they told you on illegal immigration was a lie. That you had to have comprehensive immigration reform, that they were helpless to do anything, that you need No. We had illegal immigration in this country because Democrats and the Biden administration wanted illegal immigrants in this country.
Yep.
It had nothing to do that they couldn't do it. They didn't want to do it.
The laws were already in place.
Yep. They enabled it. And so this entire thing with the courts keeps the fight in the public's eye longer.
Oh, yeah.
Because every time it comes up, the Trump administration can say, see, these courts don't want these illegal immigrants out of here. And when you look at the one Venezuelan gang member, or the MS-13 member, I guess he was part of MS-13, I think. When you look at that, there's no sympathy any American's going to have when they realize what the guy's background is.
Right.
You look and you go, okay, but you're not talking about somebody who is an innocent here.
Right.
You're simply talking about court proceedings, but the people themselves and what the president is doing has overwhelming support of the people of the United States. And then I look at the other topic, and we'll get to these in more detail. And Noah Rothman, National Review. Trump condemned for his dastardly campaign to shield Jews from violent bigotry.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Trump is condemned for his dastardly campaign to shield Jews from violent bigotry. That could have been, it's the truth, but when I read that, I burst out laughing, saying, that could be in the Babylon Bee.
No, they're fighting to keep their bigotry in place.
Yep. Now, that isn't shocking to me.
No.
Because when you are a true racist, when you're a bigot, money doesn't change your mind.
No.
When you hate is such a strong emotion that many people who hate, the vast majority of people who hatred is in their heart, money doesn't change it.
No.
It's still there.
Yep.
And the culture of rot and racism in our elite institutions is not going to go away easily.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome to Tax Day.
Happy Tax Day, everybody. Do you get a cookie if you drop it off at the post office? Or something? No, that's donating blood. Never mind.
You know, it's interesting. I was reading an article on the whole thing that, you know, tariffs are like sales taxes. And the argument of the article was, I think it was in National Review, was that you're actually soft-selling tariffs if you call them a sales tax. That, in essence, if you say that, what you're saying is that you're trying to make the case that it's passed on to the consumer, that the consumer pays it. But because tariffs hit so many intermediate products, it's actually worse than a sales tax. Because a sales tax...
It's closer to a VAT tax.
Yes. Yeah. It would be close. Yeah, it'd be closer to a VAT tax if that VAT tax hits at every... every movement of the manufacturing process. And so if you have, for example, things, and we've talked about, for example, parts of automobiles that cross the border, 3 or 4 times, at that point, the tariff is leveled every time it crosses the border. And if there's retaliatory tariffs, every time it crosses the border, it gets taxed again, which doesn't happen in a sales tax. But, when we talk about taxes overall, one of the things we always talk about is, what is the worst tax? What do I dislike? What do we dislike about, certain taxes out there? You can start and look at property taxes and you say, yeah, well, the problem with property taxes is that you always have to pay some kind of rent on that property, be it to the landlord or to the government.
You don't ever completely own it.
Right.
There's always a lien.
Yes, there's always some kind. I think that's the best way to put it. There's always a lien on it. You have to pay it, or your house can be taken away.
A permanent lien. Yes.
And for decades, one of the things that we've talked about is when people, become retired and they live on, a limited income. And you look at the reverse mortgage business. Part of the reverse mortgage business is people want to be able to pay their property taxes.
Yeah.
So they lose a ton of equity in their home, which is the interest for the reverse mortgage, in order to pay their property taxes.
Right.
That really isn't talked about a lot in reverse mortgages, that property taxes in many areas of the country going up for such a significant period of time. And then you've lived in a house that you bought for nothing, but you've owned it for 50 years. All of a sudden, the value of it is skyrocketed, and so have your taxes on it. So that's one that we've always looked at and went, But then again, there's the income tax. And when I look at everything that the federal government, and if you have a state income tax, that the government gets to pry into your life. A lot of us conservative libertarians, our philosophy is we just want to be left the hell alone. Stay out of my business.
And get out of my yard.
Yeah, get off my lawn.
Yeah. Get off my lawn.
When you fill out your taxes and you've done it for a while, everything that the government knows about you, that I don't believe they have any business knowing about you, which is one of the reasons, when you look at all the taxes out there, that you and I have always, favored a national sales tax. And it's because there may be a record on your credit card of, where you bought something, but you just, you don't pay the sale. You pay the sales tax to the company. The company pays the sales tax to the government.
Right.
The government may know what that company is doing and go through all their records, but it doesn't go through to individuals.
Right.
There is no perfect tax that exists out there, But the income tax, and this is as I've just grown older and I've seen the abuse of private information, and we've seen the abuse that the IRS was involved in with Lois Lerner and all that. And I'm just, whenever I fill out my taxes and see every bit of information that the government can get on you based on where your income comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, it's none of their damn business.
This was the most, not startling, but I think greatly concerning things about what Elizabeth Warren was promoting on going after the billionaires, basically saying, we want to go after you and we want to take the wealth that you have. Your earnings have already been taxed, but the wealth you've accumulated, we want to take that at a certain level, which would require every estate to be audited, not just Elon Musk's. Because if they're going to say there should be no billionaires, right, then they would have to go after everybody because they don't know if you acquired something. I don't know. Let's say you found a massive gold mine on your property that you didn't know was there before. And then all of a sudden you go from being worth, very little to, let's say it's $1 billion worth. They don't know that. There's only one way to find out. They would have to audit the wealth. Everything you own of every taxpayer in America every year. And then that means also, well, I bought a Jay Leno. He's got a bunch of cars. Yeah, you got some cars. Maybe you might have a few cars out there. And then we're going to have to go and have all of those pieces of property appraised because, I don't know, maybe it's gone up in the price,
Well, if you look at so many billionaires out there, I mean, everything in their house, paintings, you name it, everything has to be appraised, cars, houses, each and every year, that everything that you do as a person, as a billionaire, has to be absolutely micromanaged. And we haven't even got to the other part of it, is that most billionaires don't have, it's not cash laying around.
No.
Everything that they have is invested. Mm-hmm. And so if the government looks at that as wealth and takes that, that was one of the reasons when Trump brought it up, when Trump put it in his book, because really the first major political person out there to majorly, not that it hasn't been brought up before, but when he wrote his book, what was it, 99 or 2000, and had the wealth tax in it, and he was told, no, you can't, because he was talking like 15%, remember?
Yeah.
Like 15% wealth tax.
Right.
Said, you can't do that. That would just, billionaires don't keep 15% of their assets in cash.
Well, and even
available
floating
cash.
the idea of a one-time, because I heard a couple of people who claim to be conservatives. I don't believe you're a conservative if you ever float this idea and believe, and then say, I would consider that, or it might be a good idea, or anything like that, was that it would be a one-off. It would be a one-time deal. Well, there's never a one-time deal when it comes to taxation with the U.S. government. We all know that. You give them the power to do that, and they would keep doing it. But then they would decide, well, okay, there shouldn't be any billionaires. Well, there shouldn't be any millionaires above 500 million, and then above 100 million. And then we shouldn't have millionaires. And hold on a second. Why do you have twice as much in your 401k as your neighbor down the street who has 25,000? Or why do it would be never ending to the point of, again, the government needs to take that from you. You don't need all of that wealth. It's not fair that you have, we say earned, have all of that wealth. We need to be taking that from you. This is the redistributive rights. Again, you owe it. We're going to tax you because you exist. We're going to tax you because you have it. Again, we say earned, which is why when you come back to the income tax thing, You got to get into you got to put on your tax forms. What is your job title? What do you do? Not just where you work. What do you do? What's your job description? You got to write that down. Why? Why is it? It's ridiculous. We've gotten into this just kind of going along and, okay, that's fine. And just give them more and more and more. This is why we aren't shocked when they propose these ideas and want to go much, much further than where we are right now. This is why I have zero confidence when it comes to spending that the GOP is actually going to make real cuts. They may say, well, we cut $150 billion. We're going to take that and we're going to use it for. That's not a cut, but here we are because, again, it gets back to the going full circle, nearly $37 trillion that we owe, and nobody's screaming about it, with the exception of a handful of us conservatives, fiscal conservatives, that know that eventually it will be the downfall, that when we default, that when we're at the table now, we got to take a knee to a country that owns part of our debt, because they'll send the markets reeling when they start selling off U.S. Treasuries. They're telling everybody, hey, we think that's a high-risk game. We're getting out of that game. And you send a message. It's not just that they're selling it. It's the message that these major trade partners are sending to the rest of the world. Whoa, stay away from those U.S. Treasuries. And we shouldn't be here. We shouldn't have to take a knee to China or Japan or anybody else, any other nation, because we have $37 trillion in debt. But we do.
Well, you think about it. I mean, that was the whole thing. That was the reality check last week.
Yeah.
That was the reality check.
Yes.
Where, and Trump admitted it. I still think it's the most humorous thing that happened last week when we were saying it's the bond market, and people were arguing with us. How do you know? It's not the bond. The bond market isn't why Trump changed his mind. How do you guys know that? Well, because Trump said it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just get the biggest kick out of, and it's the second time in a couple of weeks. What was the first time? There was another time where as we say, the always Trumpers, where Trump is never wrong. It's everything is, 15th dimensional chess, and if you don't understand it, it's just because you don't have the capability of understanding what he's doing.
Where they were saying it's a negotiation, and then he was screaming, and Levitt was screaming, it's not a negotiation,
right?
And then they came back, and then he said to the media, I believe it was the day that he announced the rollbacks, he said, well, it wasn't a negotiation, but sometimes it's not a negotiation until it is.
Is a negotiation, right? And we just said it's interesting that the people that always say that Trump is right aren't even listening to what he says anymore. It's like everybody has their own narrative as to, well, what he said is pretty abstract. Here's what he definitely means. No. Well, I didn't get it from it. Well, you don't understand. You don't have the capability to understand it. And it's like, yeah, but he said it.
Yeah. It's like listening to the Oracle talk in The Matrix. Nobody really knows what she said. But it's just, this is the problem with all of this. Again, if we had our fiscal house in order, we'd be so strong, trade deals wouldn't even be a thought. Everybody would be begging to set up shop. Everybody.
Coming up on the top of the hour, the question that I have been asking, for almost 40 years, never got an answer to it on taxes. Coming up, 866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Reunite Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the show, who really pays taxes here on this tax day? We will get to that. I was thinking of remember the late Herman Cain's 999 tax?
Yeah.
When we talk about the wealth tax, and it's like, no. You can't trust the government to do anything temporary. Remember our first beef, and man, we got flack for it until we explained it, and then finally Herman Cain even sort of backed off on it and said, well, okay, I understand the problems with it, because the 999 plan would have been 9% corporate tax, 9% income tax, and 9% sales tax.
Yeah.
And our point was, no, you don't open the door to another federal tax.
Right.
You don't do that. You don't sit there and say, well, okay, let's lower the income tax, but add another avenue with the sales tax,
right,
and then have both.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yep.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's tax day, so we're just talking a little bit about taxes, and we had started out by talking about taxes. That the problem, and there's a problem with all taxes out there. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's always a problem. We mentioned, for example, the income tax, the wealth tax, and the information that the government has on you because of it. And over the years, as I get older, I look at this and just say there's no reason for that. When you look at other taxes, though, and the problem with other taxes, when you look at corporate taxes, for example, Democrats love corporate taxes because you can make the argument that you're taxing those evil companies and the public buys it.
Right.
I've always said the most successful lie that Democrats have told, tax lie have told, is that you get those greedy companies with corporate taxes, which when you look at the real outcome of corporate taxes, it's the consumer that pays for it. And it's a great way to have a stealth tax on the bottom 50% or the bottom 70% that don't pay as much nearly at all in income taxes. There's a great number of dollars that you can get in a stealth tax to tax the middle class. Yeah. And again, it's a sales tax. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons with the entire discussion on the VAT tax with tariffs, well, these countries use them, as trade barriers. Well, not if everybody has to pay it, both imports and exports on it. But they didn't do that to have a trade barrier. These countries put in VAT taxes because it's not listed on your receipt.
Right. It's just added up in the cost along the way in the supply chain to each product that you pay for.
It's a stealth tax. It's how they can get money, because when you look at it, when you look at, for example, the federal income taxes, and the Tax Foundation has their latest, which is from 2022. The top 1% paid 40% of income taxes. The bottom 50% paid 3%. Half of taxpayers pay 97% of all federal income taxes. The top 1% pays 40% of income taxes, makes 22% of income. The top 5% pay 21% of the taxes and earn 16%. Their salaries are 16%. The top 5 to 10% of it The top 5 to 10% pay 11% of the total income taxes paid and have 11% of the income. 25% to 10% pay 15% of all income taxes, and they make 21%. The bottom 50 to 25% make 10% of the income out or income. Excuse me, they pay 10% of income taxes and make 18% of the income, and the bottom 50% makes 11% of the income and they pay 3%. So you look at it, and it's like the question that I have never had answered since I've been a radio talk show host in 1989, when Democrats since that time have said that the rich need to pay their fair share. What is their fair share?
Right.
The beauty of that is they never have to answer the question.
Right.
They simply say, well, no, more, and more. So, yeah, and my biggest beef with income taxes has gotten to the point where they're into every little stinking aspect of your life. Mm-hmm. They know everything that you do. There's a roadmap to you that the federal government has, and I believe in a free society, the government has no business being in my business, right. Which is why, again, when you look at sales tax can affect everyone. I mean, they talk about having an exemption for lower income people, and I guess you could do that. But with the sales tax, they get no information on me.
Right.
You know, when you look, for example, at capital gains tax directly affects investment. That would be the problem with that one. Mm-hmm. Because that is the one that really, when you see that cut, you actually see more government or more money going to the government. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm going back and thinking, is there any other tax that when cut increases as much? Is there any other tax that on the Laffer curve increases income as much?
When you cut it.
When you cut it. Increases the amount of taxes actually paid. But, yeah, there's just a little bit of wrap-up on the on this tax day, and we hope you got your taxes done. The government cashed my check a couple of days ago, so we got that done. You're making sure that yours goes in at 11:59 p.m. tonight?
No, it'll probably be because you can't. I tried to do that. I was looking for the little clock. Can you put it through on a little clock? No, you can only do the date. So I don't know at what point it'll happen. That's up to them. They have the upper hand now. So, yeah, I don't like giving it any one moment sooner than I absolutely have to. I don't want to be late, for sure, but I was
late filing taxes once in my life, but they owed me, so there was no problem.
Yeah.
I filed like 2 or 3, I can't remember why, and it was decades ago. I filed, 2 or 3 days late, but I filed, but there was no penalty, nothing, because they owed me.
The check thing got a little archaic for me because I thought to myself, well, what if it gets lost in the pile? You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's so once they put it through and then you could do a debit out of your account, it was like, They actually, if you're doing electronic debits, I don't know if it's the case this year. I actually didn't look. But they give you a few extra days because if you send it by check, right, it's just got to be postmarked.
Yes,
the check has to be postmarked the 15th.
Right.
It'll probably sit in a pile for, I don't know, could be a minute. I don't know how long it takes to process each check. I was told they go by regions now. So it depends on which state you're living in, unless you're sending it with your filing directly. If you send it with your filing directly, it goes, to one office. But if you file early and then want to pay later, I like to get the paperwork done. I like to get that behind me because I like to know what I'm going to owe. I haven't received money back in years. I mean, like a long time. And trying to think of the last time I got a refund.
Yeah, me too.
But
I don't remember.
And it's, but it's and I like it that way. I would rather not. I would rather them not have my money all this time and then give it back to me once a year. I'd rather have to pay them. And I look at the entire process. I like to get the paperwork behind me and then pay what I owe when I owe it. And that's kind of the process. I can't imagine being in that line of work though. Like if you're an IRS processor, just processing all of these things, it's got to be a headache. Like my accountant, I already knew this, but we got everything done, last month, but I knew she was not going to be available anywhere around this week. If you were trying to reach her, forget it. We have an online account. I can go get all of my stuff without even having to contact her. But if I had a question for her, I knew that, get that out of the way long before, at least a month before the tax deadline, because they're just swarmed. My wife works in financial department for a major company, a huge company, and they're sticklers, and they've got to get everything right. So when it's like end of year, and they have to process end of year and W-2s and all the accounting stuff that they have to do, so I can't imagine those processors who, whether you're at a tax preparation service or at the IRS, you're just a processor working on that. It's got to be nightmarish, or maybe they're just used to it. They get into the mode. I have a friend who's a CPA, and she's on a 10 key. She'll just sit there and she can look at you straight in the eye and just, it's like watching a great guitarist. They don't have to look down at their guitar. They just sit there. They know where the numbers are, and they put in the numbers, and they're really good at it. That stuff gives me a headache. Doing all of that and organize, it gives me a headache because I start thinking about what we've been talking about for the last hour of the tax system, how it works, how it should work, what it should be, and where we are, and what people's sentiment is overall of how much out there and how much the cost of government, not just the income tax, the entire cost of government takes from people's wealth, their earnings.
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
When you take each layer of government,
yeah.
all the layers of government.
And it's, I understand it's necessary. We've got to have roads. We've got to have good roads. And apparently we've got, we're going to have such great roads by the year 2525, if man is still alive, because right here in our zone of our studio, there's construction that's been going on since, I don't know, 1800s, I'm pretty sure. And, I understand the cost of the user type fees, right? Of, all right, we got to have roads, got to maintain the roads. But the entire, what Doge has brought about, and this is where I think, we mentioned it with this, Elon promoting, well, we found $4 billion a day. I really believe that's Elon looking at things like, man, we don't need that. We don't need that. We shouldn't be doing that. And it's like he's doing the Eric and Gary, or some of our audience would be looking at all the expenditures, government spending, looking at all the departments going, why would we do that? Why are we spending money on that? And so you can't get to $4 billion a day feasibly, because once you start pulling on the string on the sweater, you're going to unravel everything, and everybody has a meltdown. But you do look at the idea of Doge and going in and dissecting everything, and honestly, having it expire July 4th of 2026, That's not going to be a great day for me. Because I've said it since the beginning of it. Doge should be an ongoing thing and should have been from the beginning.
Yeah, there should be constant auditing.
There should be
of the federal government.
Constant audit. And it's kind of hard because as conservative libertarians, when we talk about, department efficiencies, the last thing we want to do is create another department, even if it's dedicated to creating efficiencies. You know what I mean? It's when you look at, we don't want to expand government. We want it to be smaller. But if it were to truly be what it's supposed to be and be a true constant audit of spending of the taxpayer dollars that are spent so that there is constant communication between the taxpayer and the end use of that money, whatever the use of that money is going to be. Follow it from start to finish so that we could look back and go, you know what? Okay. Maybe there's still waste. Maybe there's still bloat, but we have decided effectively that there is going to be because, we could do something about it if more of us were concerned. But if more of us were aware, this is the greatest thing about Doge, is that we're having a conversation a serious conversation for the first time in a long time about spending. And that's why, it gets back to, me not having confidence in the GOP. I hope I'm surprised. I hope they surprise me. I hope that they get something done where they can say, look, we're going to realize these spendings for the taxpayer. And this is what it means. We're going to get our fiscal house in order. We're going to show that the American people want this done. We're going to do this for them. And we're going to keep this in motion as long as we can.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Surviving and thriving as an owner-operator has just as much to do with managing costs as it does with generating revenue. Understanding basic principles of operating costs can save you thousands of dollars a year. Costs are not the same each month. If 9,600 miles are driven one month and 10,000 miles the next, two different sets of costs apply for each month. For example, if your tractor payment is $1,850 per month and you drive 9,600 miles in the month, your tractor payment is costing you 19.3 cents per mile. Drive 10,000 miles, though, and that same payment will cost you 18.5 cents per mile. This is one of your major fixed costs while paying off a truck loan. The difference in this example is only a fraction of a cent, which may seem like small change, but it ultimately amounts to $960 more annually on the bottom line. Because though fixed costs do not go down over time, you can reduce your cost per mile with more paid miles. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I just can't believe that Democrats are fighting over the whole Harvard thing.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that coming up following the bottom of the hour, because it's absolutely insane. As the New York Post pointed out, their editorial team said Trump's simply following Title VI.
Right.
Title VI says you discriminate, you don't get federal funding.
Right.
End of story.
Right.
You discriminate, you don't get federal funding. What people forget, because we live in the bubble of today, is that Harvard lost a 2023 Supreme Court ruling.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They were discriminating. Their affirmative action programs were discriminating against Asians.
Right. They want to fight. They're fighting for their right to discriminate.
Right. Trump, remember, Title VI is part of the 1964 Civil Rights Bill.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Trump is. Trump, Trump, the oligarch,
mm-hmm. The fascist
oligarch authoritarian
is actually fighting for civil rights.
Is the one using Title VI from the 1964 Civil Rights Bill.
Also simultaneously fighting to keep Title IX intact.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's just...
What a fascist. Wow.
We'll get to all that coming up here.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
In Red Eye Radio, he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, let's go to Scott Jennings, CNN, all right, on the whole Harvard anti-Semitism. And Harvard saying, no, we're not going to follow what the federal government says. So the Trump administration announces at least $2.2 billion funding freeze for Harvard. Here's part of the discussion yesterday. Here we go.
I think that this is all about anti-Semitism. I mean, I believe that what's happened on these campuses, in the Ivy League and in other places, mostly private institutions, has been an abomination. And someone has to stand up for these Jewish
it's not
kids.
going to be the rabbi at the table.
Someone stands up. Someone has to stand. Someone has to stand up.
It's not going to be my friends in Jewish studies who have their grants
until Donald Trump came along in his administration and decided to connect federal funds to stamping out the scourge of anti-Semitism on these campuses,
like Nick Fuentes,
nobody,
like the Sikh Heil
nobody was willing to
salutes,
stand up for him.
like standing up for Alliance
And I
for
think the American
Deutschland.
people don't want a private university with a $53 billion endowment to get $1 while a Jewish kid is being discriminated against on campus.
I think, first of all, let me just hold on. Let me just
What a
say.
complete joke.
Why is it a
You guys
joke?
are nowhere. You have white supremacists in your party and in your administration. Oh, Nick Fuentes. Oh, whatever. It's
He's
just
not
a
in our
dinner.
administration.
Oh, Alliance for Deutschland. Oh, it's not really a Sikh Heil salute. Go to CPAC.
You sound
There's anti-Semitic
unhinged.
conspiracy
You sound
theories
crazy.
all over the place.
Do you not want these college campuses to do better? Do you condone what is
That's
happening
what
to these
Harvard
Jewish
agreed
colleges?
to do. They already agreed.
I think the issue is not
This is such garbage.
whether these universities should address anti-Semitism. The question is, how is the government using government power to do it? That there is a complete distinction between the university addressing its own problems and the government forcing them to do it in a particular way.
The entanglement comes when you take federal money. If Harvard wants to give up the federal money, you can do all the anti-Semitism I guess you want at Harvard or any other school. But
Yes,
that's
I
not the
want to do
issue.
lots of
That's not the
anti-Semitism.
issue.
Yeah, and when you read the headlines, it has you asking again, is there any self-awareness there at Harvard and those that are defending Harvard? Because it makes it sound like we're fighting for our right to anti-Semitism. We're fighting for our right to be bigots.
Well, because if there are anti-Semites that support President Trump who are not a part of the administration, okay? Let's say that. You and I have talked about this, before. As radio talk show hosts, there are things that we have said that people that we completely disagree with will tell us, well, we agree with you on that. Well, yeah, but you're a racist bigot across the board, so we're not related at all on anything. Mm-hmm. But when you look at this here, let's say, and I don't know who the guy is who's just out of his mind. Well, what about the Sieg Heil salute? Everything else, you can tell as soon as they bring that up, there's a incredible desperation. But let's say that there are some people that support Trump because there's millions of people. And you can take a variety of topics out there. I believe there are racists that want illegal immigration to stop. There are people that aren't racist at all that want illegal immigration to stop. So because you hold those two opinions, or because you hold those opinions, does not mean your morality is the same. Mm-hmm. And so when you see this guy here, what he brings up, all right, let's say it's all true. Let's say there are some anti-Semites that support the president. Well, the president is against anti-Semitism and wants any university that gets federal funds not to discriminate and not be anti-Semites. If you believe it's wrong that there are some anti-Semites who like the president, then you should credit the president for going after the rot of anti-Semitism in our elite universities.
And doing it effectively, not just talking, actually doing something about it.
So even if he's right, the president's doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, they don't even understand. You can see the fury. You know what it is? They're furious that their party and liberalism is the bastion of anti-Semitism, and it's Trump that's calling them out. Well, they hate Trump so bad, they just cannot stand the fact that he is the one that is going after the discrimination and hate in our elite universities.
We've seen it on the campuses. We've all seen it play out. There's evidence, and then they have to go out of their way to make it look like Elon Musk did a Nazi salute. Because they're furious. I think they're furious that the protesters are out there doing what has been in the hearts with too many on the left for far too long. They're out there in the open, on full display, protesting for their anti-Semitism. And now they're in the legal battle to keep it at Harvard. That's, when all of this was coming about and we said, there was this calling for, well, the president of this university needs to step down and that president needs to be gone. And we said, well, that's not going to end the culture at any of these elitist schools. This is in the heart, the very heart of these schools now. This is exactly so it doesn't matter. You can replace the president. You can replace some in charge of these schools administratively. It's just going to be the next anti-Semite that comes in. And you can even have them, undo their DEI policy. They'll just call it something else.
You and I've
go even further with it.
You and I've talked about this on a variety of different topics out there, that at times it's not a conspiracy, it's the culture. Yeah. And the culture is actually worse because a culture means it's so ingrained into the institutions that there is no conspiracy to break up.
Right.
If you break up if it was a conspiracy, you could break up the conspiracy and the rot dies. When it's culture, you don't need two people to be involved in a conspiracy to discriminate. It's part of the culture. Everybody just knows it. And that's what's going on, I believe, at these universities. Mm-hmm. But if you want to get into the whole fascism democracy element of it, Trump's being authoritarian and he's taking away. No, he's not being an authoritarian at all. As the New York Post pointed out in their editorial yesterday, he's defending Title VI. Title VI says you can't discriminate.
Right. And they were legally found to be discriminating. And now they're fighting for the right to discriminate.
Yeah.
their right to have federal funds to discriminate with.
Right. And Title VI is clear. You discriminate, you don't get federal funds.
Right.
End of story.
Right.
And so, yeah, the federal government wishes to have rules and regulations and be able to monitor it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're actually looking at Colombia of having a judge. You remember busing? Remember how they had federal judges looking over this stuff? They're actually thinking of going down that road with these, with some of these universities, having a federal judge actually look at it and say, well, if you discriminate, you don't get it. Having the federal judge, do it instead of the administration. Don't know whether they're going to go that far or not. But when you look at it, remember in 2023, people don't remember this because we live in the bubble of today. When you point out all the facts behind it, the left can't win. In 2023, the Supreme Court found Harvard and their admissions policies were full of discrimination. It was illegal. What they were doing was wrong.
Yeah.
What Harvard was doing broke the Constitution of the United States. The Supreme Court ruled on that. They discriminated against Asians. We know DEI is about discrimination. We know, what's going on with Title VI here and the anti-Semitism is about discrimination, absolute discrimination and hatred. We all know. All you have to say is if what Harvard was doing was against blacks, there wouldn't even be a discussion. It would stop.
Yeah.
And we all know it. We all saw the presidents of those universities testify.
Right.
Some time back. And they couldn't squirm out of it. It was obvious. They're a bunch of Jew haters is what they are. They're anti-Semitic. They practice discriminatory policies. The misogyny of the radical transgender movement is ingrained in there. And that's about Title IX.
Yeah.
The president's defending Title IX that Congress passed that meant biological women. We all know it. Obama was the first to change it. He didn't care.
Nope.
If you want to look at the people that didn't care about the democracy, Obama didn't give a damn about the democracy or women.
Well, and that's it.
He's the one that started this entire thing, as we have pointed out. Think about how discriminatory they are. We're going to change the definition of a woman. Well, what's your definition of a woman? Whatever you want it to be.
Well, again, and if you think of the Civil Rights Act, it outlined protected classes. Yeah. And if anyone can belong to any protected class, simply by saying so, then there are no protected classes. This is all by design.
But when you break it down, it's Trump because he's leading this charge. It's the executive branch under Trump leading this charge.
Actually doing something about it, not just saying it.
Is all about civil rights in this country, not practicing discrimination, not against women, against anyone. Not practice it against women, Asians, Jews, whoever. No discrimination. If you discriminate, the Constitution says, the law says, the civil rights. Let me say the civil rights bill, not it's a bill, but the civil rights bill, the civil rights legislation says you can't do that and get federal dollars. It's the president who is upholding the Constitution based on Supreme Court precedent. The Democrats are the ones that are supporting anti-Semitism, the hatred of Jews, misogyny, the hatred of women, the discriminatory practices of their admissions policies, DEI, discrimination against whites. It's all these elite institutions that want to normalize evil, immoral, Neanderthal discrimination. And they're attempting to defend it.
They're fighting on every level the legal battles. Think about that. You got states that are fighting to take the parents' rights away when it comes to kids making their own decisions on genital mutilation.
I know. Yeah.
The radicals are at the door, and they're fighting left and right and up and down in every direction for their agenda. And this is far from over.
Yeah, it's not going away. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. We'll tell you about the band at Coachella that called for murderers.
All right.
It's really amazing where the left is going. I mean, it's just pure insanity. We should have figured if Trump was in office, we sort of did, that they would just go more bat soup crazy.
Yeah.
But wait till you hear this one, basically calling for an army of Luigis.
Yeah.
To murder people.
Right.
That actually was a call from one of the bands at Coachella.
Yeah.
This past weekend. We'll get to that and more.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America. We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here, as always. All right, here we go. Another week. All right, you ready for this story?
All right, what do you got?
Wow. Keith Morse, the front man for the Los Angeles punk band Circle Jerks, has called for an army of Luigis in support of the alleged United Healthcare CEO assassin. The name of the band, which seems to be the behavior that the Democratic Party is involved in right now, the leader of the band issued a statement and a shout-out to the alleged assassin during his band's set on the final day of the Coachella Music Festival's first weekend. After one of their politically charged songs, which features the lines, "Kill all." While he said he does not support the statement, "kill all,"
You mean just kill some?
he at least appeared to support the idea of killing some.
Mm-hmm.
So, you and I, a long time back, took a strong stand on the show.
We were on the forefront of the pioneers, if you will.
Yes, pioneers.
In this regard. And now we have to restate our position because we believe it even stronger. I don't know how you can believe it in stronger. It's either yes or no, but just roll with it. we believe even more strongly against murder.
Yes. We have an official anti-murder position on the show.
And we have from nearly the beginning.
I don't even remember why we did that. I can't remember what the topic was or whether we got a response from somebody on the left and we said, okay, do you wish us to take an official position? We will take an official position. We are anti-murder on Red Eye.
Which is, we thought, having fun with stating the obvious.
Yes.
But now,
as we told you, we're radicals in our position.
We are the pioneers. We are the ones fighting.
I was about 50 feet down the hallway, right when the last commercial break started, and I could hear you. You had perverted a 60s protest cheer.
Well, it would, if you're going to do this and you're in favor of what the lead singer of the Circle Jerks is promoting, apparently, then here would be your protest chant. What do we want? Murder! When do we want it? Now!
Could you imagine if somebody just tuned in right at the point where you said,
yeah,
what do we want? Murder. When do we want it? Now.
Station managers are getting up. Like, check on the station to see what they're doing. We want murder. When do we want it? Now. I think I'm going to turn that off. Must be dreaming. Something weird's going on.
I heard. I was all the way down the hallway. I burst out laughing. I could hear you screaming down here.
It's because
I was like, oh my gosh,
that has to be.
I have to make sure I get him to do that on the air.
Well, and then, you know, the grassroots thing is, you know, the text messages. Hey, what's up? You going to the pro-murder rally?
Hey, man, Coachella's really hip, man. You got to see the dude that's promoting murder.
Yeah. It's again the radical left.
Look at the face of the lead singer. Yeah. Just look at the face of the lead singer. Look at his eyes.
Oh yeah,
he looks like. Doesn't he look like he's completely crazy?
Yeah,
it's like. Thank God he has a microphone and not a gun in his hand.
Is that dreads or is his hair just really matted?
I don't know. They've been around since like 79.
Oh, have they?
Yeah.
He looks old. Yeah, he's old.
Yeah.
Wow. An army of Luigis.
Think about it though. They're punk, which was really, when you think about it, punk was the ultimate in rock and roll of promoting autonomy.
Yeah.
Which was anybody can pick up a guitar, play 3 chords, and boom, you got a band and you can promote your autonomy with it, your rebelliousness. And now you've got these bands at Coachella supporting Marxism, socialism. They're not raging against the machine. They're raging for the machine. And you've got Joan Baez, you've got Neil Young. Do they have any self-awareness that they're actually 180 degrees from where they were 56, 57 years ago?
Well,
do they even know it?
Think about the big event that is Coachella that the Circle Jerks are a part of. Right? It's a massive, it takes corporations to put things like that together.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
One massive corporation, Google, which owns YouTube, allowed Coachella on their official channel to stream from every stage live. It's global. There are so many decision makers and high-level corporate individuals that are a part of it. And they're right there on stage.
Think of it. We've gone from Live Aid to Murder Aid.
Yes. What do we want?
Murder.
Murder.
When do we want it?
Now. It's
when people say, you guys going a little bit overboard. You're jumping the shark. You're going a little overboard when you say that these people are insane. Nope, not at all. They're nuts.
They're in support of murder.
Yeah. Let's think about that.
There's nothing. There isn't anything symbolic here. It's not. Well, it's just symbolism for. No, it's murder.
Yeah.
Cold-blooded murder.
Right. That's being promoted at Coachella.
And the same kind of morbid response to the actual murder of Brian Thompson, the healthcare CEO that was gunned down, police say, by Luigi.
Yeah.
This they're cheering for. AOC excused it away by saying, well, some people who have their claims denied see that as an act of violence. She's a lawmaker. She helps create the laws that govern us.
Here's the quote that he actually said. The song, that last line ends with kill all. That's a pretty effing ugly statement in ugly times. Do not think we encourage that. Well, because that would have to include himself and everybody there at the show.
Yeah, that'd be a problem.
Moore said, according to the San Francisco Chronicle, what we do encourage, these are quotes now, what we do encourage, what we would be totally effing, the F word, happening, would be an army of Luigis. And by an army of Luigis, Morris meant Luigi Mangione, who has been charged with the assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson.
Yeah.
He said during the set that he cut off ties with his sister for voting for that guy, presumably Donald Trump, referring to her as a white Christian nationalist.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Then you had the whole former Washington Post journalist Taylor Lorenz. You saw that interview, right?
Yeah.
Where she referred to him, and she's claiming, no, I'm saying what other people thought, but you could see her smiling and laughing about it.
Right.
There's nothing, I'm sorry, I don't laugh about capital murder.
No.
Just over the weekend, former Washington Post journalist Taylor Lorenz even referred to him as a morally good man precisely because of his alleged crime. Here's this man who's a revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome, who's young, who's smart. He's a person who seems like he's this morally good guy, which is hard to find, she said.
Wow.
She also said, it's hilarious to see these millionaire media pundits on TV clutching their pearls about someone standing a murderer in when this is the United States, as if we don't lionize criminals, as if we don't lionize murderers of all sorts. We give them Netflix shows. There's a huge disconnect between the narratives and angles a certain mainstream media pushes and what the American public feels, and you see that in moments like this. Who's endorsing murder on the other side at all? Who's endorsing violence?
I haven't seen it.
That's a straw man argument if I've ever heard it.
Yep.
Nobody's pushing it.
They have to make it up in order to justify their own support for cold-blooded murder.
Right. Exactly. Well, they're doing it on the other side. No, they're not.
No.
Conservatives aren't promoting murder in any way.
Right.
I don't know anyone on the right promoting murder.
Right.
So these, like I said, these people they're insane. They're absolutely.
No, they are.
I shouldn't say this. Let me do this. They're evil. I don't want to say they're insane, because that means that they're not responsible for what they do. They're evil. These are evil people. They're evil.
They have thought this out.
Yeah,
believe it or not.
Insanely evil. Maybe that covers it all.
Mm-hmm. They have thought this out. This is who they are at their core. But think about saying this out loud, promoting it to the masses, whether it's an audience at a concert or an audience on a podcast. They believe this to their core. They try and soft walk it. Lorenz with, oh, well, I was just, no. This is what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's like AOC trying to justify it by saying, well, some people believe it's an act of violence if they get their claims denied.
I do like the morality, though. We're not going to kill all, but we want to kill some.
Right.
Excuse me. We don't want to murder all, but we would like to murder some.
Right. And where do you draw the line?
Well, that's a pretty high morality, isn't it?
Right.
Think about it. Now we're radicals, you and I, because we took that strong anti-murder stance, are now the radicals.
Right.
How dare you guys be anti-murder? Don't you realize to be moral, you have to promote at least some murder?
Well, this is, if you think about it, this is what, again, started as tongue-in-cheek by stating the obvious, has now actually become a stance.
I know.
We're against murder.
Well, when people say, look, the left and right needs to learn to compromise, where do we compromise on this?
Right.
All right, I agree with Mr. Circle Jerk. I agree. We shouldn't murder all.
Yeah.
But he says murder some. I want to murder half of who he wants to murder.
Right.
Is that the compromise?
Portion.
Can you believe we're having this conversation?
Just a murder based on the percentage. Just a murder based. Right. This is again when it all starts and ends with whether or not you value life.
Yeah.
And they don't.
Nope. 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And I forgot, where was I? Oh, I saw what it was yesterday. Yeah. I was going through YouTube, and you know what came up in Shuffle? Everybody from the Breakfast Club getting together. I guess the anniversary's coming up,
the reunion that they did. Was that like at a Comic-Con thing or something?
And I watch it. You know, I've never watched that full movie.
Yeah.
I've never watched it from beginning to end.
I watched it years ago, but my grandkids watched it. We were at the beach a couple of years ago. I think it was summer of 23. And it was funny. They were laughing because the part where I sat down for about 20, 30 minutes and watched some of it with them. And there were some funny lines in there. And I would quote the line right before it would happen. And they hadn't seen it, and so they were laughing. And also kind of had to, explain to them, yeah, it really wasn't like that. I mean, it's an interesting movie. But there's some things in there, that was like obviously over the top. You're just character development is the whole thing. And that was the entire reason for the film. I mean, you had your cliques in every high school. The jock, and then, the rebels, whatever it would be, and then the rich girls, and then the other girls who were more shy, and then the cheerleaders and whatever, but to that extent, there was that. But I was watching my grandkids observe those from that generation, that dynamic and those things, and they thought it was pretty funny.
Well, the point I wanted to make is they asked the cast the question, because the whole cast was there, and it was Emilio Estevez, Ali Sheedy, Molly Ringwald, Anthony Michael Hall. Man, does he look old! Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. He's in Reacher, and I saw a clip. I didn't even know it was him. I go, who is this guy that looks familiar? Who's this old guy? Anthony Michael Hall. And then Judd Nelson. And they asked them, what do you think, what would you like from back then to have now? And one of the things they said was no cell phones, because life was much better for kids when there weren't cell phones. And Judd Nelson said, I'd like less animosity between the right and left. I'd like more cooperation in our political system, because it's not getting anywhere. And you think about it, just what we've talked about today, the anti-Semitism on Harvard, absolutely unconstitutional what they're doing. There's a Supreme Court decided that in 2023. The hate, the anti-Semitism, the misogyny of the radical transgender movement. To sit there and say that the right, you tell me anything that the right has officially, that the Republican Party has, that is as outrageous as the pro-murder stance you're seeing coming, like from AOC, justifying murder, the radical transgender movement, the misogyny there, the hatred of identity politics, which, again, encompasses what Harvard is doing with their anti-Semitism, the Jewish hatred. Where do you compromise?
There's no middle ground. In fact, I would say tolerating that behavior for all those years got those radicals to be louder and louder.
Yeah.
You shouldn't tolerate them.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
All across America. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Oh, my gosh, this is so funny. Our friend, comedian Steve Byrne, posted this a couple of hours ago on Facebook. And there's a picture of, Neil Armstrong on the moon. And it says, Neil Armstrong, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And then it shows Katy Perry in her flight uniform. And it says, Katy Perry's quote, "This is up there with meditation and the Hoffman process," which is a personal growth retreat, just so people know. It's like,
yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, wow. So
I guess,
funny.
Did anyone tell them they really didn't go into space? I mean, you went pretty far. You went further than
I did in the F-16.
Yeah.
With the Thunderbirds. Yes.
You're going to, you're going up pretty high. Yeah. But it's not actual space travel. I don't know. I guess that's the thing, right? It's more of a Six Flags ride. It's right.
I mean, it's cool. I mean, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I don't think I'd be allowed. I wouldn't be allowed to ride with the Thunderbirds now. I'm too old.
Right. Yeah.
I'd be too old and
feeble.
For God's sake,
physically feeble.
I can't even golf without 48 hours of rest afterwards. My body is finally just coming around.
Well, the reason they wouldn't allow me with the Thunderbirds is because they knew I'd keep saying, "Can we stop at Starbucks?"
Nah, you really don't feel like eating something after they do a couple of their maneuvers.
I just want some coffee.
Not really.
Yeah, I grew up with my dad at Laughlin, which is the Air Force Base near Del Rio. I mean, we saw the Thunderbirds. I don't know how many. I don't know. I don't think it was once a year. Probably once every other year, once every 3 years. Took the grandkids to see him. When was that? That goes back to like 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. And that was fun. It was a couple hours away from here. It was at the Air Force Base near my parents' house, Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas. And that was cool. But we kind of, you kind of grow up around that, seeing it. I mean, we had lots of air shows. Living on the base, you see, and you go down by the flight line. It was one of my favorite things to do is get on my bike and ride down there by the flight line and just watch them. That was fascinating.
Yeah, I did it in 98 when I was working at our great affiliate KXL.
Mm-hmm.
Took off from the Hillsborough Airport. And the worst part was sitting at the end of the runway for 10 minutes before we took off. I don't know. I can't remember why, but just sitting there waiting, anticipating. That was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my stomach was churning. And then, we took off, and those planes take off quick. They get in the air quick.
Mm-hmm.
He's got, 100, 200 feet in the air. It might have been 300. I don't know. But we're just going down the runway for a couple seconds, and he says, oh, there's a hole in the sky. Let's go straight up. Now, you're not going straight up, but we went as close to straight up. It seemed like we were going straight up. Go right up through the hole in the cloud, turn around, and then we go above the clouds, and we're flying upside down. And I can see, 200 miles away, 200 and whatever it is, 230 miles away, Mount Rainier, peeking up through the clouds.
Yeah.
From way there, you could see that. And I remember thinking, well, when I was done, I remember thinking, okay, I can die. No regrets. What else can I do in life? This is it. But then we went out. They wouldn't let us break the speed of sound. We came close, so we had to go 70 miles though off the coast over the Pacific, and we buzzed a barge. That was great, buzzing the barge. Came around and he lets the smoke fly, and you can see people, this ocean barge, people coming, the sailors come running out and waving to us. That was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 9Gs, not cool.
Yeah.
You don't. If I weighed, I don't know what I weighed back then, I'll just throw it. If I weighed 200 pounds, that means you weigh 1,800 pounds.
My dad talked about that quite a bit because my dad, when he became senior enlisted advisor there at Laughlin, he would often fly with the wing commander. They would go from Laughlin and fly to Lackland in San Antonio, which I think is, 100? I don't know what it's a couple hours by car. It's an hour something by car. So they could get there in just a few minutes, And so for Dad, I mean, he wasn't the pilot, but they had to basically go through, all right, this is what you need to get used to when you're up here flying, if you're going to be riding along with the colonel. And so he said that was, and Dad was in really good shape. I mean, he used to run 5 miles a day in the heat of the summer in near Del Rio. So he was in pretty good shape, but he said that was the hardest, pulling G's because that's when you're going through that training of, all right, this is what you should expect. They'll kind of take you through the ringer.
I remember when people would ask me the question, what is it like taking 9Gs? Is it like a roller coaster? Yeah, a roller coaster from hell. Mm-hmm. I mean, you feel the pressure. I remember looking up through the canopy. Now, I did not, I wasn't knocked out by it. And they tell you that sometimes you can see like your eyes, like your field of vision starts closing and closing and closing. That never happened to me.
The tunnel effect.
The tunnel, yeah. I didn't go in that, but I do remember when I was going through that, and I don't know what the entire time period is because you're making a very, very tight turn. So you might be taking 9 Gs, I don't know, for 10 seconds, 12 seconds, something like that. And I remember looking through the canopy and seeing the sun and thinking to myself, that's the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm dead. A lot of death thoughts go through your mind at that point. But, the weightless stuff was cool when you take your glove off. But I'll never forget when I got the opportunity to go up because, as I said, the radio station, our great affiliate, KXL in Portland, was sponsoring it. So it's like they came to me and said, we've all, everyone had done the Thunderbirds or the Blue Angels.
Right.
It's like, you're the new guy.
Yeah.
You get to do the Thunderbirds.
Yeah, they did that quite a bit with radio and TV personalities back in the day. Yeah.
And they said, they said, we will fly straight and level or do everything you do in the show. Well, my dad was a private pilot for the longest time when he was younger. He was one of the acrobatic pilots. He did that all, he'd get in a plane and loop around and do all that stuff.
Right, yeah.
So presented with that and having to then talk to my father about it, there's no way I could tell him I have the opportunity to go up in an F-16 and we're only going to fly straight and level.
Yeah.
I couldn't look my father in the eye, even though I might have preferred that. I said, do everything you do in the show. And I'm so glad that we did that I did that. But at the end of doing everything and then going the 70 miles back, which, by the way, when you're going just under the speed of sound, does not take too long to go 70 miles.
Yeah, no, it's boom.
My stomach was right at the verge. And I'm like, I just want to land. I just want to land. I've had enough. I've had enough. And so we're getting ready to land, and we come down like this, and he doesn't land. He just goes, again, I don't know how high he was above the runway, but I thought we were landing. It was over. And he just goes, he takes that plane and just puts it into a turn, at the end of the runway. We fly all the way across the runway up for one more. Where I don't know how many G's we might have taken, maybe 4 or 5. But it still was like my stomach was like, I'm not going to be able to make it. And the whole thing was I could not. I would lose my man card if I threw up.
Yeah, don't do that.
And so I didn't, but we came around. When we landed, I was like, whoa. But the best part about it is I have a picture. Dad still has the video somewhere at his house. But I have a picture of me standing on the wing about, to get, into the flight deck. The canopy's open, and they stencil your name across it. So it says Gary McNamara. Yeah. And there I am giving the thumbs up, and I'm in the suit. So people come into my house. It's happened. People come into my house and say, oh, my God, you were a fighter pilot? And I said, didn't I tell you about that?
Right.
Really? Oh, yeah. I flew with the Air Force,
The government only calls me when they need me.
Were you
like
ever,
Skunk Baxter.
Exactly, right. I go, were you ever in combat? Oh, sure. That's something.
Yeah.
And they're looking at me like, whoa. And then that point where I'm going to have to tell them this is pure bull.
Well,
no, that's when I flew with the Thunderbird.
At one radio station, we had a 22-year-old employee named Alex, and he begged. He said, look, if they're going to do this, can I be the one? And he he campaigned for it. After he did it, he joined the Air Force. He's a retired lieutenant colonel, and he was a pilot.
Wow.
Yep. And he was a trainer for the longest time. Yeah.
Yeah, I did it. I was almost...
So he had ulterior motives. He wanted out of radio.
They checked me. You had to pass basically the physical before you did it. Yeah. And then they told you, you went through instruction beforehand in case the pilot conked on, in case there was a serious thing, when to pull the ejection lever.
Yeah.
You're sitting there going, and you're looking at the ejection lever going, I never want to put my hand on that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's a no-no.
But it was great. And it was, I got to fly a little bit, with the little stick. And it was funny because he did an 8-point turn. And he goes, okay, you do the 8-point turn. It's the funniest thing on video because you see the plane shaking, going back and forth.
Yeah, right.
I did it, but it wasn't smooth at all.
Yeah, you can tell. Yeah, it was a rookie thing. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. But it was one of the greatest experiences that I ever had.
Yeah.
It really was. So,
yeah.
So, what do I get to do on this show? Not much.
No, we stay on the ground.
Yeah. We're old people now.
But we're anti-murder.
Yeah, we're anti-murder.
Yeah.
That's...
Which, again, It's weird, but it's actually a stance now.
How could you be anti-murder if you went up with the military?
It is.
I had to throw that one out there.
It is crazy. It is crazy to think about. If you think about the entire spectrum of where we have gone. Well, you and I, 20 years this July as a team, but in all the years you and I combined have been doing talk radio. You go back, and the positions, the things we've seen, but beyond that, the positions from the left that they've taken. And now they're fighting legally for to maintain their radical behavior.
Yeah.
With the whole thing going on with Harvard, some of the states, and allowing kids to have genital mutilation surgery, and all of these positions. It's just
the pro-murder stance now of a band at Coachella.
Yeah.
You shake your head. You're just like, wow, how does this happen? And you realize, it's one of the reasons that we talked about, that even if I agreed wholeheartedly with the way they rolled out the tariffs, the fear that I saw from all Republicans, and I would still have, would be if the economy is down, I don't want Democrats in power for the next 10 years.
Right.
Because where they stand on so many of the issues today is just pure evil.
Yep.
And that's not over-the-top rhetoric.
No.
It's where they actually stand.
Yep.
I mean, how do you defend what that punk singer said at Coachella?
Yeah.
About, we need an army of Luigis. We need an army of assassins to kill people we don't like.
And that's who they are. That's how they think.
Yep. Have you heard any outrage statement?
No.
From Coachella or anything?
Nope.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. That's who we are. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the top of the hour, Department of Transportation says nope. No $60+ million to the proposed high-speed rail between Dallas.
60 million or 60 billion?
60 million.
Was it million? Okay.
Yeah. It was 60 million. Again, it was this is when in 2023, Amtrak wanted to get involved in it, and it went from being a private thing to a public-private partnership.
Right, yeah.
Is what they want to do because Amtrak has such a great history of running profitable entities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's where it came in with the with the Biden administration last year for a $60 million grant to continue the planning. That was just the planning.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America. We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara.
Hello.
Good morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Happy Tax Day.
Oh, yeah.
Get it in.
All right. I had to pay my federal tax. I am not paying my state income tax.
I refuse to pay state income tax to Texas.
We're not going to do it.
I'm protesting. We don't have one.
Yeah. Isn't that great?
Yeah, I love that.
And people go, but your property tax. I'm an old guy. I got relief.
Well,
I got big relief in the last couple of years.
And lawmakers in our state are looking to go closer and closer toward eliminating the property tax. That was one of the questions asked on the ballot. What they were asking, basically, would you be in support of? It was kind of, one of those propositions of, should we bring it to the ballot? Should lawmakers in our state consider doing away with the property tax? And, of course, I voted yes. Yes. But, they're moving more and more in that direction. They've reduced the property taxes greatly for a lot of people, and especially for seniors in Texas, which is a good thing. So maybe one day we'll be free of the property tax altogether. We'll see.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should start with, on top of the state of Texas, following Trump's ruling, should say no property tax for senior citizens and no taxes on Social Security. Just in general, I mean, there's nothing of my own self-interest here at all.
No, and I also think that we should define a senior citizen as 55 and older.
No. Use the AARP.
What is it
version.
now? 45 for the AARP? They're just trying to get membership. Listen, you're 30. You're
27.
over the hill. Yeah. You're slowing down after 30. Let's admit it. Sign up today. Yeah. Where are the discounts? You know what? Some offer discounts at 55. Just businesses offer discounts at 55 and older. I don't think I've ever asked. I don't think anybody's ever asked me, hey, you might qualify for a senior discount.
The only thing I notice I'm getting senior discounts on now is, for example, hotels.
Okay.
And it's not a lot.
Now, are you asking it, or is the clerk at the desk just typing it in?
No, everything I do is online.
Yeah, okay.
Because now when I visit my dad, I used to stay in the guest bedroom, but that's really become a hospital room for him now. So I stay in a hotel. So I've been staying there in a hotel for a while. And so I'm using the same app to do it. And they have, the senior rate. Now, the senior rate on a room probably is, I don't know, maybe, I'm trying to think. It's what they do is for the senior rate, for the app that I use, for the group of hotels that I use, it's more expensive than the first rate, but the first rate is no refund.
Right.
No credit, no refund. And so the senior rate is a few dollars more, but you can cancel the day before without being charged the entire amount. And so it really is the cheapest rate. The senior rate is where you can cancel one day before. The other ones aren't. Once you pay, that's it.
Right.
And so not sure, sure with my dad's situation at any particular time, I want that ability to, cancel it and come back the week later, whatever, because I'm back there so much. But other than that, I can't think of anything else where I get a senior discount on.
Yeah.
I certainly don't get it. There are no senior discounts for flying.
Well, these days, if they offer you a senior discount, they're still going to ask you for that weird tip that they didn't used to ask you for. It's like you're paying at the front desk, and it's like, would you like to tip? And it's like, the guy's a surgeon. Why do I need to tip him 20%?
Oh my gosh!
Why are you even asking?
I have a dental appointment in 3 weeks. It'd be interesting. It's like they have a tip jar in the dental office.
Right? Would you like to tip?
Well, we decided that, hey, come on, who gives you personal service, more personal service than the people at my dental office? They're wonderful.
So
they give me great service.
Oil change place.
No way.
Yeah. And this is an oil change place that's been in my neighborhood since before I lived there.
Tipping for an oil change?
Yeah, and I never tip. I don't tip.
Should I expect that at my dealership now?
That's what I wondered. I thought, and I don't, because I didn't before. It's one of these things where they put it in, And
wow,
if they had a sign there that said, "Look, all of our techs, we'll get the tip or whatever." It's just but it's part of the processing of the payment thing that's just gone into play at many businesses where there wasn't a tip before. If it was a situation where I did tip before, like you go get your hair cut, it's customary to tip, right? Restaurants.
Yeah, restaurants. I get my hair cut.
But it wasn't customary before. And, man, my oil change with everything involved is close to $200. So, because I get tire rotation, I get, a number of things, done every time I get an oil change. And if it's a situation where I wasn't tipping before, I'm not going to start tipping now.
I was talking to someone here in the last week that had no idea you were supposed to tip for Ubers.
No, yeah. That actually was a debate early on, though.
Was that a debate early on?
Yeah, because they would pride themselves on, don't
I forgot about
tip,
that. Right.
don't do this. And then it was like, okay, in order to attract more people that would be drivers, to the business model, then you're going to have to incentivize. And I remember because, Ashton Kutcher, I don't remember what level of involvement he had in Uber early on. I don't remember if he was one of the finance guys, in terms of investing in it or not. But he was on one of the late night talk show. This goes back several years. And they were talking about it. Okay, are you supposed to tip or not? But it was a debate of whether or not you're supposed to. And I rarely take an Uber, and when I do, I always tip. It would be customary for me to, if I, back in the day when I took taxis, I would tip the taxi driver. We, at the event in Louisville, the trucking event, the hotel had a shuttle, and it's a free shuttle, but I would tip, we tipped every day, and so, and in those roles where it's customary to tip and expected kind of, then that's one thing.
Yeah, I forgot about Uber early on that. That you're right on that.
Yeah.
That was a debate. To me, it was never a debate because of the undependability of taxis. I always tip there. Where I used to live, where I live now, I could never get a taxi to come out that far.
Mm-hmm.
Ubers are all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, but even when I would get a taxi, if I was in a major city and get a taxi for something, I always tip. So for me, it was just natural for an Uber driver to do that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, too, when you look at Uber, you want to keep. I always think, because when I call Uber or Lyft or whatever, but the majority's been Uber for me, I absolutely have to have that ride now.
Yeah. Right.
So I don't want a 2 rating or a 3 rating.
Mm-hmm.
You want that 5.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because every driver now says to me, "Hey, this is really a cool conversation. You're going to give me a 5?" I said, "If you give me a 5, it's like, okay, we'll give each other a 5." Is that Uber collusion?
Is it ratings fixing? Uber ratings collusion. Yeah.
The Democrats are going to solve that one.
Well, it's like I'm kind of back and forth on the delivery of prepared food.
I've never done that.
It's great
by Uber. I've had food delivered.
There's the Uber Eats. I have what they call a Dash Pass on DoorDash. So you get free delivery. You pay a monthly fee, but you get free delivery on, a number of things. I have a special needs daughter, and we're at the house together during the day, and I'm doing show prep. And so there are a lot of times when it's just not feasible for me to get dressed and go get something if we want something from outside the house, and we're not going to prepare food in the house. So in those situations, or on the weekend when it's movie night or whatever, I will definitely tip the Uber driver. I tip what is beyond usually the recommended tip. I'll go just above that usually, maybe even higher. The reason I'm back and forth on it is because there are certain restaurants where the food doesn't arrive warm. There's one restaurant that we get, and the food is always just piping hot. It just has to do with the proximity, how far that food's going to travel. That's just the nature of it. And so that's 99% of the time, that's not on that driver. It's quite often on the restaurant. But I don't, on the tipping thing, I'm not into this new game of basically as you're swiping your card, it's going to ask you now to tip in a situation you didn't tip before.
Yeah, I forgot what hit me in the last week where I went, really?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't even like a Starbucks because I'm used to that.
Right.
I'm used to the coffee place
mm-hmm.
or any coffee shop
Starbucks
that I go to.
Used to not do it at the drive-thru, but now they do. And it's funny because the clerk at the window will say, it's going to ask you a question, and the question is, would you like to tip? And if so, how much? You click which level of tip you want, right? You hit the button. And I'm always like, yeah, what question would that be?
Well, the local coffee shop, because I haven't been to Starbucks since my at least 9 years,
mm-hmm.
since I've had type 2 diabetes, because all I ever got was it the caramel frappuccino.
Oh, yeah, well, that'll do it. I've never had one of those. Yeah.
It's got enough sugar to, I don't know,
do some real damage.
Yeah, I mean, it's when I read it one time, I went, oh, I might as well just shoot up heroin.
Yeah.
Because I always say sugar is my heroin.
Yeah.
So, but my local one asked for a tip. They're a local small business,
mm-hmm.
and I'm only in there once every couple months. Tim Hortons, I don't believe, when I'm back in New York, I go to Tim Hortons. I don't believe they ask for a tip.
Well, you think about it. If you go through like a McDonald's, they don't ask for a tip. But other fast food places do, and coffee shops do.
Yeah.
Now, the difference would be, they'll tell you, the case they'll make is, well, the barista's doing a little bit more than just pouring the coffee. But in my case, often it's not. It's just a black coffee.
Yeah, wherever I was, it completely caught me off guard.
Mm-hmm.
I'll remember. If I remember it, I'll tell the story. All right, 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. Due to safety concerns, many motor carriers have policies that limit or prohibit the use of cruise control. If your motor carrier does allow you to use cruise control, you should only use it in good driving conditions during daylight hours and on roads that have light traffic, few curves or hills, and a consistent speed limit. Never use cruise control when operating in adverse driving conditions, including wet, icy, or slippery roads, during rush hour in heavy traffic or on congested highways, at night, or when you're tired or fatigued. During all of these driving scenarios, you want to be controlling and adjusting your speed as you drive instead of having to suddenly brake if you encounter an obstacle. In the case of a slippery road surface, you want to be able to slow your vehicle by not accelerating instead of using the brakes whenever possible. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So this story hit the news yesterday. We talk about the California high-speed rail to nowhere.
Yeah.
In Texas. I can't believe it. I had to go back and look at this. They've been talking about a high-speed rail line from Dallas to Houston for years. I mean, for years. And I went, how long was that? When did I start talking about that? And the corporation was formed in 2009. So they've been talking about high-speed rail, the high-speed rail line between Dallas and Houston for 16 years. Wow. And the entire talk about it was that it was going to be private, no government funding at all.
Right.
Apparently that didn't work out, and in 2023, Amtrak came aboard, and Amtrak was, and the other people, other groups involved in it, wanted a public-private partnership.
Right.
Which really, in a way, changed everything. Because a lot of people went, well, wait a minute, for years you were saying you didn't need it, that you could make this profitable. That's ridiculous that we're not doing it because it could be profitable. And now Amtrak's involved in it, and you know their track record of profitable rail lines.
Oh, yeah.
And so last, was it August, September, the rail project got a $60 million grant from the Department of Transportation. That was pulled yesterday. The U.S. Department of Transportation announced Monday that it will, this is from Fox News, that it will save American taxpayers over $60 million by ending a grant to help fund a high-speed rail project in Texas. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy made the announcement, saying an agreement between the Federal Railroad Administration and Amtrak to terminate the $63.9 million grant had been reached. The grant was awarded to Amtrak under the Corridor Identification and Development Program for the Amtrak Texas High-Speed Rail Corridor, previously known as the Texas Central Railway Project. I am pleased to announce that the FRA and Amtrak are in agreement that underwriting this project is a waste of taxpayer funds and a distraction from Amtrak's core mission of improving its existing subpar services, Duffy said. If the private sector believes this project is feasible, they should carry out the pre-construction work forward rather than relying on Amtrak and the American taxpayer to bail them out. My department will continue to look at every opportunity to save federal dollars and prioritize efficiencies. So there you go. Now, the Texas Central Railway Project was originally announced as a private venture, but its cost estimates increased dramatically, and the project became dependent on federal dollars and Amtrak for its development. DOT said the capital cost for the project is believed to be more than $40 billion, adding that the price makes construction unrealistic. The cost also makes the project a risky venture for taxpayers. I can guarantee the state of Texas isn't going to put a ton of money into this.
No, they're not. Yeah, I don't know where it goes from here, but again, that the private sector can't get it done, then I guess it's a wash.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, like the California high-speed rail has been in the news in California for years, if you lived in the state of Texas, there's no way you could not see the stories, especially if you lived in Dallas, the DFW area, or Houston area, about the possibility of the high-speed rail. I looked it up to see when the first corporation, for high-speed rail to do this was formed, and it was 2009. So they've been talking about it now, and it was supposed to be done by next year. By 2026, it was supposed to be completed. Construction was supposed to be started by 2021. But now that Amtrak has pulled, Amtrak's out, from what I can see, if they pull the funding, then they pulled everything. They're out of it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there would be any more private sector investment because this is the way we've always approached things like this. If the private sector sees an opportunity, let them build it. You run into some issues with eminent domain and things like that. But in terms of paying for the project, let the private sector cover it, because if there's a profit to be made, they'll find it. And clearly, with bringing in Amtrak on the planning grant of $64 million, then you think that, okay, well, we didn't have the money. And the question would be, well, why would any other investors, private sector investors, come in?
I'm reading this from Houston Public Media on the 27th of February of this year. Houston to Dallas bullet train project seeks another step as Amtrak seeks delivery partner. The National Railroad Company on Tuesday released a notice designed to engage with potential industry partners on a proposed high-speed rail that would transport people between Dallas and Houston. Then it says, Amtrak is searching for a delivery partner to assist with the long-standing plan to construct a high-speed rail between Houston and Dallas. Well, now Amtrak is out.
Right.
So who's calling the shots on it now? And then on April 1st, there was a bill introduced into the Texas House to ensure that no local or state funding went into the reconstruction of roads that would be needed to build the high-speed rail.
Mm-hmm.
So, but with now the Department of Transportation pulling their money, well, then Amtrak's out, right? So who's running it? It would have to be completely. You're not going to get anything of significance from the state of Texas. The federal government is out of it, at least now for 3.5 years, unless Democrats get back in power.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, they know how to keep rail projects going on forever, don't they? I mean, they certainly know how to bring it back around. I mean, I really think, this happened during the Biden years. Joe Biden, Captain Amtrak, so it's no surprise that it happened during his time in office. And it could come back if Democrats take the White House again. I could see them looking at this again, pouring more government money into something.
This train would reach speeds of like 205 miles an hour. Would take roughly 90 minutes to get there, even with, I think there's one stop along the way. Well, I mean, 3 stops total, Dallas, then a stop somewhere in between, and then Houston.
Right.
In this article, it says it takes 3 more hours to travel from Houston to Dallas by car or truck. Nonstop flights between the cities take approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And again, you got to be at the airport earlier, and probably you wouldn't have to be at the airport that long, or the airport, the train station as long. But see, that doesn't mean, when people said that, well, you don't have to go through TSA, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that. You get on the train, you're there, you actually save a couple of hours. That's all fine and dandy, but what's the cost? Mm-hmm. What's the full cost?
Right.
And can the project make a profit? Well, from 2009 until 2023, they thought they could do it. Then they brought the federal government aboard, and the federal government was still looking to find, 16 years after the start of this all, still looking for private investment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now that Amtrak has pulled out, which means the federal government has pulled out, it would have to be all private again. So you're starting again from, well, I'll ask the question. Are you starting again from day 1, 2009 in 2025? But the thing is, it doesn't matter whether, well, don't you realize everything is cost? What is the cost to do it? and what is the government subsidies that is needed for something like this. And really looking at California is a great way to look at it. What have they been able to accomplish there? But the thing is, this cost keeps going up and up and up and up and up. Now they say $40 billion is what it would cost. How do you recoup that?
Well, there's the problem I have. Let's say Amtrak were to stay involved if, or let's say it comes back, right? Democrats take the White House in the future and it comes back. The problem that I have with that is this partnership they seek eventually would be what? Well, the private sector on their knees because it's not profitable, and then Amtrak taking over completely. And then it's taxpayer funded, and it's, you can't shut it down. It's not profitable. It doesn't matter. It's a loser all day, but it doesn't matter. It's still going to remain.
If the government builds it, it never goes away.
Exactly. and that's it. Once it's in play, right? I mean, because otherwise, if Amtrak were a part of it, and then the private sector part of the partnership folded, well, then you've got to allocate more money once those routes are established. And you're not going to reverse it. Have we reversed anything on Amtrak? Is there a huge demand for Amtrak? It's not profitable.
Yeah, probably in certain small corridors.
Yeah, in the Northeast, probably. Yeah. Other than that, it's not nationally. It's not profitable. But that doesn't matter. The government doesn't matter, or it doesn't care about profit. We're going to fund this through the taxpayer.
Well, when Amtrak came in, they had to do a business model study. Said, okay, we need Amtrak in here. We're going to need federal subsidies, because what's it going to cost? What's the full cost going to be? And then what's the ridership? What is not a liberal estimation, but a very conservative estimation, right? What's the worst possible scenario is what you'd have to look at as a business person, right? Of the ridership.
Yeah.
And then what would ticket prices have to be in order to pay, because the $40 billion isn't going to come from cash up front, it's going to be borrowed money. And therefore, what's the interest rate on that? And how long does it take to pay everything back and still make a profit on it?
And how do you compete with the airlines? Because the airlines, one of the things with the airlines is that if you have people that are commuting, let's say between Dallas and Houston on a regular basis, and there are plenty of people that do that, many of them rely on their miles, right? They're getting those miles. They want those miles. Those points are building up. Those miles are building up because they're commuting maybe a couple of times a week or even more. And so then can you compete with that? I mean, they could. You offer that incentive, right, where you build up those miles. And so if you're frequent, then you get to build up those perks along the way. Those are things you have to consider. So you have your card rate, your basic rate, your standard rate, and then you're going to have to incentivize the business riders and those that you want basically as a base of regular frequent riders that are going to be there. That's how you build that business out. And then freight is part of it too. I don't know exactly what the capacity is and what they're planning on there. That'll be something, that's something different, but that is part of the bottom line. That's part of the revenue stream. So,
well, it's not going to be freight like a traditional.
No.
Train.
It isn't. No.
Right.
But it has to be, it is part of, that that's kind of that supplemental thing where they, can send packages or whatever they can, again, it's not going to be, you're building all of this out to figure out what your then average rider or rate is going to be. And I don't know. Because it depends on the response to it.
Wasn't there supposed to be parallel to it a superhighway for trucks?
Mm-hmm.
To take advantage.
I think that's still in the works. I think
was that a part of this? But it's supposed to go next to it. I
don't know. It may be adjacent, but I don't know that it's part of the same infrastructure project.
It's been the thing is it's been so long.
Mm-hmm.
If you live in Texas, it's been so long since we've been covering it. It's like anytime you see something, you're like, yeah, right, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we saw Amtrak, back year and a half ago, we went, oh, man. And then when I saw the grant, I went, here we go. Back last August, here we go again. We're still trying to get it off the ground. It was supposed to be begin in 2021, and then the construction then be ready by 2026 by next year. Mm-hmm. Now they're talking about the early to mid, 30s for it to happen. Well, what's the cost going to be at that point? But the fact of Amtrak pulling out, I wouldn't be surprised if the whole thing goes belly up now.
Well, again, you'd have to attract more investors, private sector investors, and I don't know how you do that at this point.
Well, if Amtrak came in, you're talking about the fact that it went from 2009 to 2023 as a purely private investment. They couldn't figure it out. They had to bring the government in.
Exactly.
So they admitted failure that they cannot get it done as a private sector. Mm-hmm. They need the subsidies from Amtrak to do it.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know how you attract any other private investors here. That wouldn't make any sense at all. Because if those private investors were looking at it, you actually might be able to do it if Amtrak was still involved. Because private investors are like, oh, the government will throw more money at it. And, they're hoping to get a check, right?
Right.
A little bit of payback for that. But without that, they'll sit on the sidelines until that happens again.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app because an hour from now, our show ends. And after our show ends, a lot of people can't listen to the entire show. Why? Because we're on in the middle of the night. Because we're on almost 24 hours in a row. Or at least it seems like it at times.
Yeah.
No. But some people go to sleep listening to the show. Some people wake up listening to the show. So if you want to catch more, you can download our Red Eye Radio app. And we record the entire show. It becomes our podcast after the show is over. And if you cannot listen to one of our great radio stations for some reason overnight, we stream all 5 hours live in our Red Eye Radio app. Coming up following the top of the hour, wow. I just saw this and went, wow. I can still remember when we read the editorial. Jury selected for retrial of Sarah Palin's New York Times defamation lawsuit.
What are we doing, classic talk radio? Hey, coming up, we'll continue to talk about Bob Seger and Led Zeppelin.
Let's now go back to 2017. Yeah. Remember when we read that editorial? Remember, what did I say when I looked at you and said, Eric, they're in defamation territory here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows this story. Mm-hmm. For them to pretend they didn't know about it, and really it came, I think, to the conclusion from one of the judges where he said, well, they apologized. Immediately apologized after they got it wrong.
Yeah.
But it was so wrong where we said, whoa. So the first time she lost, but then a retrial because they found the judge found some inconsistencies, so they're doing it again. So we'll get to that coming up here in a little bit. Plus, what else was there? Oh, man, there's just, more anti-Semitism stuff, more tariff stuff. Mm-hmm. All coming up.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.